Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's Game of Thrones mid-season predictions. So now that we are officially halfway through the season, I thought I'd make a quick video to update my predictions that I made 6 months before the season even started, many of which has already been proven wrong, and make predictions on what I think will happen in the second half of the season. And since I'm kind of cheating, having seen the first half of the season, I'm expecting to have a much higher chance of getting these predictions right. So I'm aiming for a 50% correct rate. I often get a lot of comments on my old prediction videos pointing out how wrong I was, but if you listen to the commentary on those videos, I even said I expected to get most of it wrong, so I'm not surprised that I'm being totally wrong, because I barely had any information to go on, whereas now I have the first half of the season to go on, so I have a better idea of where the season might be going. So I'll have to give a spoiler warning for Game of Thrones up to Season 6, Episode 5, as well as a spoiler warning for filming and production leaks, because there's still a few things we learned from the leaks that have yet to be revealed, and a spoiler warning from the novels on which Game of Thrones is based. So if you don't want to hear about any of those types of spoilers, then this video may not be for you. So I'm going to go location by location to give my predictions on what I think might happen in the second half of the season, and I'll start with north of the wall where Bran is. So I pretty much got all of my predictions wrong with Bran, as I thought Meereen would die, but it ended up being the exact opposite, where everyone else in Bran's storyline except for Meereen died. And the cave he was hanging out in is destroyed, and he's running off on his own only with Meereen, and has a lot of people pointing out it's going to be hard for Bran and Meereen to get away with all those whites and White Walkers chasing them without any help. And so I am going to change my mind on my earlier stance that Cold Hands will not appear in the show to say that he will. We did see a hooded figure in the trailer riding a horse, which several commenters on my videos speculated was Cold Hands, and I was really against the idea. But I've actually come around to thinking that this might be the case. So the reason why I was against Cold Hands appearing was that we're up to Season 6, and according to the book, she should have appeared in Season 3. So I had this attitude that if we were going to get Cold Hands, it would have happened by now. But after seeing what had occurred, I think there may be several reasons why they may have delayed Cold Hands' appearance, which the show has delayed characters' appearance in the past, such as with Jojen and Meereen, who were in the books, appeared in the events of Season 2, but did not appear in the show until Season 3. And several other examples as well. However, I don't think a character's appearance has ever been delayed for this long before, which again is why I doubted it in the first place, but there are several reasons why I changed my mind, because I'm not sure this character will be an out-and-out Cold Hands, but more of Benjen Stark, but in a sort of dead Cold Hands-esque role. So yeah, essentially Cold Hands. Now, I know immediately many fans will point out that George R.R. Martin has said that Cold Hands is not Benjen Stark, but first off, that's not technically true. There's some scribbled notes that people claim came from George R.R. where the note asks, "Is this character Benjen?" and the note answers no, which isn't the same thing as George R.R. Martin actually saying this in an interview, which he never did. In other words, these notes could be wrong. Maybe they're not from George at all. Maybe it's just some other people playing a prank. Don't know. Or perhaps the show is just going to go a different route than the books. But if Benjen is Cold Hands, that would explain why the show didn't introduce him earlier, because in the format of the show, if Cold Hands is Benjen, you would be able to tell right away because you'd recognize the actor. They did a similar thing with Barristan Selmy, who was introduced in the events of Season 2 in the novels as Artisan Whitebeard, whom Daenerys did not know was Selmy, but because seeing him on screen, you'd be able to recognize the actor immediately, they dropped the whole pretense of an alternate identity and introduced him as Barristan Selmy a bit later. I feel they may do the same thing here with Benjen by dropping the pretense of introducing him as an alternate character, Cold Hands, and just introduce him as Benjen. But he will be a sort of dead version similar to what Cold Hands is. And the other reason I changed my mind and am now thinking Cold Hands will come into the story is because Bran and Meereen are off on their own. Hodor, Summer, the Three-Eyed Raven, and the Children of the Forest are all dead, so they no longer have anyone to protect them now. So I think now's the time that they need a character like Cold Hands, whereas in the past they didn't necessarily need him and were able to get along without him. And the reason I think it will be Benjen is because we got several name drops of Benjen recently, with Ali telling Jon that they found Benjen and was seeing a young Benjen and Bran's flashbacks, all reminding us that, hey, Benjen Stark still exists. So I predict Cold Hands will come and help Bran and Meereen and take them to a place where they're protected, where Bran will continue to do his green sight thing into the past, and we will get more flashbacks and more events about the past, and that Bran and Meereen won't spring into action again until the season finale, where Bran and Meereen will arrive at the Wall and meet up with Ed. Now, I don't think that the Night King mark on Bran is like a tracking device. I think it simply allowed them to overrule the magic that was keeping them out of the cave. But there's been some speculation that is, if Bran's at the Wall, does that mean that White Walkers would be able to overrule that magic that the Wall has keeping them out? I certainly hope not, as I think that would make Bran the biggest idiot ever, as rather than help defeat the White Walkers, he would be responsible for letting them through the Wall, which would make him the worst character ever. So I really hope they don't go that way, and I think it's very possible that the mark only helped the White Walkers overrule that particular magic that was protecting that cave, not necessarily the Wall, which could be something different entirely. As for Dolorous Ed and A Night's Watch, I don't think we will see them again this season until Bran arrives at the Wall in the finale, as I don't think they'll have much to do with the story until then. So, let's move on to my predictions for the North with Jon Snow and Sansa, as the main spirit of my predictions here stands, but many changes to the details, such as with Rickon being held captive by Ramsay and the Umbers having allied with the Boltons, and make no mistake, they are allied with the Boltons. There is no conspiracy going on. We already saw the trailers. Umber banners flying alongside the Bolton banners at the battle, so this conspiracy talk has already been proven wrong. So, rather than the Umbers being the Stark's key allies, it will be the other major house that has been hinted at and have yet to side with the Boltons, and that is the Manderleys. We saw from the trailers Braavos and Sansa at Bear Island attempting to apply to the Mormonts, and I think that they will be one of the first houses that the Stark gains, as the head of the house already sent a letter to Stannis last year saying that the North only has one true king, and his name is Stark. They will also gain the loyalty of the Kerwins, whom Ramsay killed the lord and lady of that house last season for not paying their taxes. The rest of the minor houses, I think, will have to be convinced, and a scene that was hinted at in filming leaks where a lot of these houses are gathered in one place for a meeting, where the Manderleys will declare for the Starks, and Wyman Manderley, or the show equivalent, will make a speech in support of the Starks, which will win over all of the houses, and thus the Starks will have the support of the Manderleys, plus almost all of the minor houses and the Wildlings, which will be a big enough force to take on the Boltons, who will have the support of the other two major houses, the Karstarks and the Umbers. And thus, we will get the Battle Bastards in Episode 9. I'm not so sure I'm sticking with my prediction that Ramsay will survive the battle, or that he will make a secret pact with Littlefinger. I don't really think that's likely. I think Ramsay will probably just die in this episode. I think Littlefinger is likely to come out at the last second to save the Starks, as I predicted, but in my predictions I said Littlefinger would likely join whoever's winning, where I now say that he has always intended to join the Starks, but we'll wait for the right time to do so, as at the moment Sansa doesn't want his help, so I do think he'll arrive at the last second to save the day. As for the Tullys, I'll get more into them when I cover the Riverlands, but suffice to say, I don't think they'll be involved in this battle for the North at all. all. I do think it will end with the Starks retaking Winterfell and Sansa and Jon being in charge. I'm still skeptical about Jon taking the Stark name and becoming the head of House Stark. I kind of doubt that will happen. I think it would likely name Sansa as the head, or Rickon, that is, if he survives. So, moving on to the Riverlands, I now think it is possible we will meet the Gravedigger, aka Sandor Clegane, through Brienne's storyline. Before, I was very strongly against the idea since the two had already met and they knew each other. However, I think this will play a different dynamic, as the Gravedigger will be a new man of peace who is unassuming, and Brienne will have to get used to it. She will encounter him on her way to Riverrun, but once there, she will ask the Tullys for assistance. The Blackfish will turn her down, saying that they have too much to deal with down here as their position is still being threatened, which to me is kind of a no-duh situation. I'm quite surprised that Sansa and Davos thought they could rely on their support. However, Brienne will offer to help them resolve their situation so they can be in a position to assist the North. But their situation is only going to get worse when Jaime arrives with a Lannister/Frey force to lay siege to Riverrun, and Brienne will be put in the tricky situation of facing off against Jaime in battle. I think at first she will meet him and try to convince him to back down, but that won't work and will lead to a battle as the Tullys try to break the siege of Riverrun. And I think we'll end with Brienne luring Jaime away so that the Tullys can defeat the siege. Now, whether or not Brienne actually kills Jaime, I think will be a cliffhanger that will not be resolved until the next season. As for Arya, I'm pretty much sticking with my main prediction for her in the Riverlands, that she'll meet up with the Hound, help them, and she'll help resolve the outlaw situation and meet up with her wolf pack. So essentially my end of the season predictions for her stands, but we'll see. So next we'll go to the Iron Islands, which turned out very differently than I expected, as Euron and Yara and Theon are at odds and he wants to murder them. So I mentioned in my previous videos I completely dropped my predictions that the Ironborn will attack the Reach, as I think they will just skip that entirely and focus on them going to Meereen. So I don't think we'll see Euron again until the end of the season, as instead we'll focus on Yara and Theon as they make their way to Meereen, and they'll get there to meet Daenerys and form an alliance with her, one in which Tyrion would suggest, as he'll know that they'll need to have allies in Westeros. However, Euron will show up with an even larger fleet and help Daenerys win the battle in Meereen, but I'll get more into that when I get to Meereen. Next we'll go to King's Landing, which quite frankly has been moving a lot slower than most of the other storylines, as it's pretty much just been spinning its wheels. I think that's because it's saving a lot towards the end of the season, and I'm sticking with many of my predictions. However, I'm now thinking that Qyburn will be the one who kills Kevan Lannister and Maester Pycelle rather than Varys, and I think he will use his newly acquired little birds to do so on Cersei's behalf, who will want them out of the way so she can rule King's Landing again. I think this temporary alliance between the Tyrells and Cersei will hold until that point, and then things will come to a heated head with them, just as I predicted. I'm not really sure what will go down with Tommen and Margaery, and whether they will turn to the faith, as filming leaks seem to suggest, or if those filming leaks are wrong. This is the sort of wait and see moment for me, but I do think it will end in the same place, with the High Sparrow trying to seize control of the throne while the Lannisters and the Tyrells feud amongst themselves. I do think we will get a trial by combat with the Franken Mountain, who will just simply kill whoever the Sparrows put up against him, who will not be Sandor Clegane. But it could possibly be a trial by sevens, maybe. I'm still holding out hope, we'll see. So we'll get to the Reach, where I think in the next episode Sam and Gilly will magically appear in Hornhill, with no mention of how they got there, as Hornhill is landlocked and not by the sea. But whatever, they'll just show up, and just don't ask questions when it comes to travel in Game of Thrones. one thing I learned. Anyway, I'm sticking with my predictions on how the meeting with Sam and his family will go down, and that eventually Gilly will have to leave Horn Hill with Sam because Sam will be on the outs with his father, who will be being a total dick about it. And because I no longer predict that the Ironborn will attack the Reach, I no longer think that Randall Tarley will die this season, and instead Sam will be forced with trying to find a place for Gilly and her baby in Old Town. And I'm no longer predicting that Sam will meet Tyrion in Old Town. I don't think Tyrion's going to Old Town, because I'm now thinking he'll still be in Meereen by the end of the season. And instead I'm thinking he'll meet up with Jorah, because he has met up with someone else. And Jorah was sent by Daenerys to seek a cure for grayscale, and it seems like the Maesters would be a good place to go to look for that. Many people think that Jorah will go to an eastern city like Asshai or Karth seeking a cure, and the main reason I think the show won't do that is because they aren't just going to have scenes with Jorah by himself. They like to bring multiple characters together, and they won't want to have scenes with just Sam by himself in Old Time either, so which is why they are going to bring Jorah and Sam together so they can have more characters in one place, which we know is something the show likes to do. So a brief word on Dorne and the old clusterfuck of a story that the show has irredeemably ruined. Just to say, I think we will be spared from this monstrosity and will not have to see it for the rest of the season until the finale, where the Sand Snakes will show up in King's Landing to assassinate Tommen. Yes, I'm now thinking that Tommen will die this season, but at the very end of the season, meaning that we won't deal with the power vacuum left by his demise until next season when Daenerys shows up to take the throne. So that's my new thinking of it. So let me now cross over to Braavos, where I believe Arya will be successful in her assassination mission of the actress and gain the respect of the Faceless Men, but the waif will still find her unworthy, and so the waif will go off on her own and try to kill her, but Arya will somehow kill the waif instead, gaining Jaqen's respect. So he will then send her on a mission to the Riverlands, as per my earlier predictions. However, I think this mission will serve as also a double meaning, as a test for Arya to see if she truly is no one, as she'll come face to face with her own past. A test that she will fail, because she will reconnect with her old self by meeting up with her old direwolf, Nymeria. Although that's just my guess, with all these crazy rampage that Dan and Dave has been on, killing off all the direwolves, I think it's just as likely that Arya will find someone wearing Nymeria's severed head or something like that. Fucking pissing me off. But anyway, this is just like a slight variation of my earlier predictions, and I'm still not 100% on them, but just what I'm sticking with for now. So moving across Essos to Meereen, which I'll include Daenerys' storyline, as I think that she'll soon return to Meereen. I think that she'll return there in episode 7 or 8. However, I don't think they will leave Westeros until the end of the season. I think we will soon get the scene with Drogon flying over the Dothraki as he goes back to Daenerys and rejoin her, and we'll get a few more short scenes with her, but won't really see her in any significant function until she returns to Meereen. So in Meereen, Tyrion will start making headway with turning the people for Daenerys' cause, which will make the wise masters of Yunkai, Astapor, and Volantis nervous, so they will break their truce and commence the attacks again, and will go for a huge one that doesn't just involve an internal fight, but an external one as well, as they will lay siege to Meereen while the Sons of Harpy attack from within. But then we'll get several waves as Daenerys with her Dothraki rage on the city and they win the day. But then we'll enter the Ironborn, and Daenerys will have to deal with how to return to Westeros, and will in fact decide to leave all of the Unsullied behind to ensure peace, not just in Meereen, but in Astapor, Yunkai, and Volantis, which she will take over as well, and will install regional rulers who will coordinate with Grey Worm and Missandei, who will stay in Meereen to rule that whole region in her name. And while she, Tyrion, and Daario take all of the Dothraki and return with the Ironborn, including Euron and Yara, whom she will force to work together, back to Westeros to conquer it. And that's how I think her Season 6 storyline will end. So, those are my updated predictions. I still could get a lot wrong, as I did with the first half, but hey, I'm just giving it my best shot because it's just fun to speculate. So that's it for my mid-season Game of Thrones predictions. Be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover episodes of Season 6 with my weekly episode reviews and weekly discussion videos with Apkin Tomko. This week, Apkin and I are joined by special guest Don Willie, and this will be live this Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US, so be sure to join us for that. And also, check out my channel as I do many more videos on shows like Star Trek, Orphan Black, and more, and be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. Thanks a lot for watching.